Some military leaders become legends because of the big battles they win. Others are remembered for the quiet principles they lived by. But every once in a while, you find a story about someone who was both. Today, we're going to dive into the life of the first commander of the Vietnamese Special Forces, a man whose entire life was a masterclass in action, principle, and just profound personal sacrifice. So, this is the man we're talking about, Colonel Nguyen Diem. For nearly a decade, he didn't just command one of the most famous fighting forces in Vietnamese history, he literally built it from the ground up. And his story? It's not about strategies made from some distant, safe office. It's about forging an elite unit right there in the mud and sweat of the front lines. But that really begs the question, right? What truly makes someone a legend? Is it just about the battlefield victories we all read about? Or is it maybe also about the quiet, unseen sacrifices they make along the way? In the life of Colonel Diem, we're going to see just how deeply those two things are connected. Okay, so here's our roadmap. We'll look at how he became the first commander, his incredible hands-on approach to leadership, the core principle that drove him. We'll get a peek into his personal life through his wartime letters, and then we'll talk about the powerful legacy he left behind. So let's start at the beginning, March 1967. The colonel already had this reputation as a master of special operations, so he was given a huge task: form and lead the brand new Special Forces Command. And his mission was to create a force that was, in his own words, specialized, elite, and heroic. No small order. And for the next 10 years, he was so much more than just a name on a command roster. He was right there, on the ground, leading his troops through some of the most critical moments in history, like the final Ho Chi Minh campaign. But here's the thing. His real impact wasn't just strategic. To really get why he was so successful, you have to understand that for him, leadership was deeply, deeply personal. And that personal approach, well, it gets us right to the very core of who he was. This was not a general who pointed at maps from a safe distance. He was all about action and practice, a true leader right there on the front lines. In fact, his soldiers had a saying for him. They called him the commander who says 1 but does 10. Think about what that means. It was simple, but pretty radical. He would never, ever ask his soldiers to do something he wasn't willing to do himself. And not only that, he'd do 10 times more of it. And he'd always be the first one to do it. And this wasn't some empty slogan. It was his day-to-day reality. He was literally in the mud with his men, crawling under barbed wire, swimming, climbing through every single obstacle. He would personally test battlefield first aid techniques, and he even redesigned stretchers to make them safer and more mobile. He was obsessed with one thing: making the training ground so brutally realistic that the actual battlefield would feel familiar. And the impact of this was just undeniable. As one of his comrades, Colonel Diem said, "How we trained was how we fought, and it was very effective." You see, this wasn't just about boosting morale. This tough, practical approach saved lives and it won battles. His authority didn't come from the rank on his collar. It was forged in shared hardship and total authenticity. So you have to wonder, what drives a person to have that kind of incredible dedication? Well, for him, it all came down to a simple but really profound principle he learned from Ho Chi Minh: Zi Kong Vi Thong. Basically, it means the public good first. And for him, that wasn't just a nice phrase. It was the absolute code he lived by every single day. And if you need one story to understand how deeply he believed this, here it is. In early 1967, right when he was in the middle of the critical work of setting up the Special Forces, he got news that his father had passed away. Of course, his colleagues told him, "Go home." But after a long silence, he said that his duty to the nation had to come first. It's an almost unimaginable choice to have to make. This absolute focus on duty, it didn't just stay on the battlefield. It shaped his personal life, too. And it gives us this rare glimpse of the actual man behind the uniform. And we see it most clearly in the few, very brief letters he sent home from the front. Just try to put yourself in his shoes for a moment. You're writing a letter to your own son, who's also out there fighting. And this is what he wrote. It reads less like a note from a father and more like a commander's orders. He doesn't ask if he's okay. He just calls him to his duty. It's like the father in him had to step aside so the commander could speak, addressing his own son simply as another soldier. But if you think that letter was brief, get a load of this. A letter he sent to his wife in April 1975, right in the middle of the final chaotic push of the war. It had just 4 words. Ein Van Gonsam, I am still alive. That's it. In the middle of all that chaos, that was all the information, all the reassurance he could offer. Just 4 words carrying the weight of an entire world of conflict and fear and love. And all of this, it brings us to his legacy, a story where every single victory was tangled up with deep personal sacrifice. His life really was a testament to the unbelievable cost of war, a cost that he paid over and over and over again. I mean, just take a second and look at this timeline. It's staggering. His first wife, killed in action in 1950. His stepson, who he loved dearly, killed in 1968. His younger brother, killed in 1972. And then, just 1 year after the reunification he'd fought his whole life for, he passed away from a serious illness. His body was just worn out, utterly spent after decades of relentless service to his country. And so, here we are, back where we started, looking at this face. The first commander, a leader who was defined not just by his brilliance on the battlefield, but by the silent, absolutely crushing weight of personal sacrifice that he carried for a cause he believed in. And that really just leaves us with one final thought. When we learn about a life like this, a life of such incredible dedication and quiet suffering, a life that truly put the public good above everything else, it forces us to ask ourselves, what do these silent sacrifices from a generation that gave so much, what do they really mean to us today?